They're our political editor in Canberra. The federal Labor backbencher Kelvin Thomson says the government system of regulating live animal exports has not prevented outrageous cruelty. Thousands of Australian sheep have been killed on the grounds that they're infected, but the Federal Agriculture Department says the animals were healthy when they left Australia. Labor backbenchers are angry, and the livestock exporter Wellard has compared the situation to pirates hijacking a cruise ship. Labor backbencher Kelvin Thomson joins us now from Melbourne. Kelvin Thomson, good afternoon. What do you understand?
Good afternoon, Joe.
Yeah, what do you understand happened to these sheep that were slaughtered in terms of how they were slaughtered inhumanely?
Well, it's clear that something like half of the 20,000 sheep were culled prior to the court order, and there are credible reports of these sheep being clubbed or stabbed to death and in some cases buried alive. This is simply unacceptable cruelty. To have the sheep go to Bahrain, to have the shipment rejected there, for the sheep to languish on the ship for weeks in circumstances of high temperature and then to be sent to such a cruel fate is simply not good enough.
But the government's hands are effectively tied because it's happened in another country.
Well, that's right, and I think it shows that the arrangements that we have in place at present are simply not adequate to ensure proper and decent standards of animal welfare.
Can you have arrangements in place that can guarantee animal welfare overseas?
Well, it's a very good question, Joe, and it's one of the reasons why I believe that we should be transitioning out of live animal exports and into the same kind of situation that New Zealand has, where the animals are killed in New Zealand and the meat is processed there and then exported to other countries. I believe that that would provide a much better guarantee of animal welfare.
But this was a particular situation where the animals had been declared diseased.
Yes, I don't personally think that that description is accurate. I accept the views of the company and the Australian Chief Veterinary Officer that the animals were in a fit and proper condition. It seems to me that Bahrain has breached the Memorandum of Understanding under which the animals were exported. I also think that Pakistan has breached its Memorandum of Understanding, and I believe that we should not be exporting animals to any countries that do that. We shouldn't be exporting animals unless we can have an absolutely rock-solid guarantee that the animals will be accepted and will be unloaded when they arrive there. So I think what we need to do is to cease the exports to Bahrain and Pakistan forthwith, but over the longer term, we would be much better placed if we were to move away from live animal export and towards a situation of domestic processing.
What about the devastating impact that we've seen on graziers previously, at least in the cattle industry?
Well, that's why I say it's something that we need to transition to. But the point is that if you move towards an industry of domestic processing, there are more jobs and more dollars involved in that kind of value adding. Other countries like New Zealand have done it successfully, and I believe that we could also do it successfully here. I believe that many farmers would be distressed and dismayed to see these reports of what has been happening to their animals once they are exported, and I think that many farmers and companies here in Australia are likely to take an initiative towards domestic processing rather than see the examples of animal cruelty and unacceptable treatment of animals that we've been witnessing.
But the argument, I believe, has been that in some of these countries they need animals slaughtered within a particular period of time before they're eaten and slaughtered in a particular way that couldn't be guaranteed here in Australia.
Well, that can't be allowed to be an excuse for the kind of cruelty that we've been witnessing, the way in which cattle were treated in Indonesia and the apparent barbaric treatment of sheep that have been exported, in this case from Australia to Bahrain and then on to Pakistan. That is simply not an acceptable way to treat sheep. It's quite clear that the company itself has said this is not an acceptable outcome. The Minister and the Government has said this is not an acceptable outcome. What we need to do is to put in place a system that will ensure that we don't have these sort of unacceptable outcomes.
Are you concerned that cattle are still being inhumanely slaughtered in Indonesia?
The government has put in place supply chain assurance arrangements designed to prevent this. My own view is that we would have a more guaranteed arrangement concerning animal welfare if it were a requirement that all animals were to be stunned prior to slaughter. That is the arrangement which applies in Australia, and that is an arrangement which animal welfare groups have said is vital to ensuring that there are proper standards of animal welfare.
Are you frustrated that as a Labor MP you've been hitting your head up against a bit of a brick wall on this issue for some time now?
There are quite a number of Labor MPs who are concerned about animal welfare issues and who have concerns about the live export trade. People like Melissa Park and Steve Georgianis, Tony Zappia, Michael Danby, quite a long list of people who are concerned about these issues, and we are working with the government to try to produce better outcomes. One of the things that we are pressing for is the establishment of an independent Office of Animal Welfare, something which was resolved at the National Conference of the Labor Party last year. We believe that the establishment of such an independent office would provide us with better guarantees concerning the way in which animals are treated. So there are things that we are working on in a constructive way to try to get better outcomes than the ones that we've been seeing.
OK, well, we look forward to seeing if that office is in fact established. Kelvin Thomson, thanks for talking to us.
Good to talk with you, Joe.